Good morning, Dan and Amy. Coming up October 27th, I believe is the date. We've got a little annual soiree called the Freedom Summit, do we not?
Got a little shindig going down Saturday, October 27th at the Westin Chicago Northwest and Itasca. This year it's presented by Geiger Wealth Management, Chicago's retirement experts. And this year's keynote speakers include former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke, who we'll get to, also James O'Keefe from Project Veritas, our own Mike Gallagher, also Noah Rothman from Commentary Magazine, and Kurt Schlichter from townhall.com will be there as well. To get your tickets, and you should get them because this event always sells out, go to freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com.
All right, and
there's our plug.
We've got November 6th right around the corner. It'll be, with 10 days of our Freedom Summit. But, of course, there's already an eye towards 2020 with all of the Democrat aspirants. You saw them on display during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing, some of them. You've seen them on the campaign trail with their hysterics. You see them running big banks, apparently. Jamie Dimon yesterday throwing his hat into the ring.
These comments came from a J.P. Morgan event. Mr. Dimon, who is always plain-spoken and some say very outspoken, was making the comments to a moderator who asked him, Jamie, why don't you throw your hat into the ring, meaning the run for the presidency? Here's what Mr. Dimon said, quote, I think I could beat Trump because I'm as tough as he is. I'm smarter than he is. I cannot beat the liberal side of the Democratic Party, end quote. And then he continued to say, basically, he could punch me all he wants and it wouldn't work. He went on to say, and by the way, this wealthy New Yorker actually earned his money. It wasn't a gift from Daddy.
Well, it was a gift from Daddy, U.S. taxpayer. Not all of it, of course, but Jamie Dimon, of course, and his bank, as well as previous employers, the recipient of federal largesse during difficult times, in addition to the rent-seeking behavior that's conducted by big banks on Wall Street as a matter of daily business. So being lectured by Jamie Dimon is not something I'm particularly want to do, but it is fun because I like these guys like Mark Cuban and Jamie Dimon who think because they're successful in one realm, they could be president of the United States or they can be successful in the political realm. The political graveyard.
Hey, he played. Oh, yeah.
Political graveyard is replete with rich guys who thought because I was successful in business or another sector, entertainment, I will be successful in politics and I can beat somebody electorally. Graveyard is full of people who think that.
Well, Mark Cuban did play the president in Sharknado 3.
That is true.
That's where he got a little taste of it.
That's true. Okay. No word on whether Ann Coulter will be his running mate. For more on 2018 and 2020, we're pleased to be joined again by David Clarke, former Milwaukee County Sheriff, retired. Now he's a senior advisor to America First Action PAC, which is a pro-Trump super PAC, and he's going to be here in Chicago on October 27th, Itasca to be specific, as Amy mentioned, as part of the lineup for our Freedom Summit. Sheriff Clarke, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on with you, Dan and Amy.
So give us your perspective now that you're in the kind of political operative space as an advisor to a PAC. What's your perspective on how the midterms will go and how essentially the referendum on Trump that the midterm represents will go?
Sure. First, a couple of things on what you were just talking about. A lot of people think that they can beat Trump. The problem is nobody has to date. So it looks easy, but it's not. President Trump has just some outstanding instincts. And I'm not talking about political instincts, but he applies it to that. I wouldn't put the two guys that you talked about. I would never use the word great instincts with those two individuals. They're successful in one end, like you say, but that doesn't necessarily transfer over. What a clown show put on by the Democrats at the Kavanaugh hearing. A time-honored tradition of nominating somebody to the Supreme Court, a very important thing under our constitutional process. And people used it. What a buffoon that Cory Booker is to stand up there or sit up there, I should say, and with his antics. So, going into the midterm elections, I don't really get into making predictions, but it's all going to be about turnout. I remind people, forget about what the pundits are saying. Forget about the polls. Forget about how many yard signs you see, so on and so forth. We just have to drive turnout, and it has to be in very high numbers. So I'm traveling the country, and I'm looking forward to coming to the Freedom Summit on October 27th. It's one last chance before the November 6th election to rally the base, to energize the base, to help drive turnout. I think that President Trump, the proof is in the pudding. When you ask me about how he's done leading into the midterms, he might not be on the ballot, but of course his agenda will be. So, we're going to find out if the Trump supporters can rise up once again and push back, beat back this leftist resistance, so that what he was elected to do by the Constitution can be carried out.
Are you going into any of the districts where the political candidate is not a supporter of President Trump's, although they're running on the Republican ballot?
No, because they don't show up at the stuff that I'm at. It's not that I don't show up at theirs. They don't show up when I'm there. They know better than that.
I wanted to talk about an issue that we talked to you a lot about when you were Milwaukee County Sheriff, and your expertise is still relevant, particularly for us in Chicago, and that's law enforcement. That was a significant part of President Trump's campaign in 2016. It seems to me in a lot of urban centers like Chicago, but not just Chicago, and with the issue of people in this country illegally who commit acts of violence against other people in this country, that it should still be something that we're attempting to address, the carnage on the streets that is so preventable.
Yeah, without a doubt. But, there's some limitation anyway from the feds. This crime and violence is a local issue. Now, what the locals have to do is but ask for resources from the federal government to assist them in what is their responsibility. If they do not ask, it's kind of difficult for the feds to come in and kind of take that stuff over. You don't need that kind of fight. So
when,
of course,
sorry,
Superintendent Eddie Johnson.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but so when Rahm Emanuel declares Chicago a Trump-free zone, that's not helpful to law enforcement.
Not at all. Like you said, it's been one of the pillars of his campaign, to restore order, using the federal resources, when requested to help restore order, but they're resisting. Rahm Emanuel declared Chicago a sanctuary city that relegates all of the residents and citizens of Chicago as second-class citizens. It means something to be a citizen in this country. It means that you get all the rights and privileges of the United States Constitution. And when Emanuel, who thank God is not going to run, but when he extends that to people who are not citizens, then he dilutes the meaning and the intent of citizenship. But as to the crime and violence going on in Chicago, the great city of Chicago, by the way, I think it's really sad, but I have not seen a plan put forth by Superintendent Johnson. I need to see an operational plan to regain control of the streets again. Many of these neighborhoods, and it's not all throughout Chicago, but if it's in one neighborhood, it's too many for me with the senseless carnage. But
their plan,
the criminal element is in control.
Yeah, and
the criminal element is in control in too many neighborhoods.
Yeah, their plan is to keep it contained in those three districts. That's their sense of accomplishment. As long as it doesn't spill over to homes in the Gold Coast or apartments.
Well,
or
the mistake, the mistake with that approach is violence is like water; it seeks its own level. It spreads. It'll find cracks. It'll find crevices, and the violence will spread. And so it may be, they might think they're containing it in a couple of neighborhoods today on the west side and the south side, but before long, that stuff will spread outside. And it's happened in the city of Milwaukee, where the crime is spreading to Milwaukee crime is spreading to suburban community, outlying suburban communities. So that's a failed strategy to think that. And it also says, hey, it's okay for the people in these neighborhoods to have to put up with this stuff, for them to get killed, for them to lose their lives, because it isn't all one gang member shooting another gang member. You have kids caught up in the crossfire. You have innocent victims caught up in the crossfire of this stuff. And so for someone to say, well, we're going to keep it contained, it's okay to happen over here, I think that's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, we live in the land of disbelief here in Chicago. As you travel the country, I wonder what you hear from Trump supporters in terms of any concerns they have or something they'd like to see the president do that they think would be most helpful? Is there anything you hear over and over again?
Well, yeah, and you get into some of these specific instances, like with the Mueller investigation. Certain people believe that the president should end it and do that sort of thing. Those are political decisions that have to be well thought out because there's going to be political fallout. Even though he has the authority to do it, you want to do it wisely. And right now, he's up to his eyeballs in alligators with many of these other things. So, that's something that down the road he obviously will take a look at. But what people are telling me, first of all, they're loving the fight that he's taken to the left. He's loving the fight that President Trump has brought to Washington, trying to drain the swamp. It's going to take a long time to do. It's not something that can be done in one election cycle. So I think in terms of, are they satisfied with what he's done thus far? I think you look at the accomplishments, you look at the tax cuts, you look at small business growth, you look at a robust economy, wage growth, you look at things like the blue-collar job growth. You look at the unemployment going down, people getting off of food stamps and unemployment rolls and getting back into the job sector. And the proof, like I said, is in the pudding. And that's what people want. That's what they expect out of Washington, D.C. that they weren't getting before Donald Trump got there. They just want results. They want something done. Donald Trump knows how to get stuff done, for heaven's sakes. We haven't had somebody in the White House with that ability in a very long time.
All right. He is former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke. You can catch more of his plain spokenness on October 27th at the Freedom Summit in Itasca, one of our featured speakers. He's a senior advisor to America First Action PAC. And, of course, on October 27th, cowboy hats will be welcome.
Yes.
So, David Clarke, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the 27th.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
And we should also mention that Sheriff Clarke will be signing copies of his book, Cop Under Fire. So if you want, you can get a chance to meet him and he can sign your book.
Cop Under Fire. There you go. All right. Thank you so much, Sheriff Clarke. We appreciate it.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.